Good evening and welcome back to our presentation of ICET exam preparation for communication ability. So today we are going to discuss about passage reading and comprehension. The same thing that we were discussing yesterday. We are going back and trying to understand how to attempt your comprehension and passage reading questions. Okay. So as we've discussed, you have three sections in your ICET exam. So section A, section B and section C. In section C you have communication ability, and as a part of it we have passage reading and comprehension. So passage reading, as we've discussed again yesterday, if you could take a recap, it's about how you read the passage and how can you attempt those answers, how can you get those answers. So there are 2 or 3 ways of doing it. We've also discussed different approaches towards it, that is how to answer these passages. First was we've discussed about how to read the passage and then go and answer the questions, or look at the questions and then come back to the passage and see if we have the answer in there. Okay, so yesterday we had done one of these passages. Let's go back and look at those passages and find the answers to them and see how we can understand these passages better. Okay, so this is what we were reading yesterday. Laws of nature are not commands but statements of acts. The use of the word law in this context is rather unfortunate. It would be better to speak of uniformities in nature. This would do away with the elementary fallacy. A law implies a lawgiver. If a piece of matter does not obey a law of nature, it is punished. On the contrary, we can say that the law has been incorrectly stated. Okay, so if you can see over here in this paragraph or passage over here, there are no paragraphs, it is only one passage, and in this passage the author is talking about the main subject is laws of nature. So as per the laws of nature, why do we call this as laws of nature is the author's whole idea. He doesn't want it to be called as laws of nature. So when we read this passage, we should understand what this passage is about. That is very important, what your subject is and what are the details mentioned in it, because these questions which are there are mostly going to be about the main topic, which is laws of nature. Okay, so first question ikkada, if a piece of matter violates laws of nature, it is not punished because. So మీరు ఫస్ట్ మెథడ్ వెళ్ళొచ్చు, లేకపోతే యూ కెన్ గో సెకండ్ మెథడ్. ఫస్ట్ మెథడ్ ఇస్ గోయింగ్ ఫర్ క్వశ్చన్ ఫస్ట్ చదివి దెన్ యూ కమ్ బ్యాక్ టు ది ఆన్సర్, రైట్? సో what is the question over here? If a piece of matter violates nature's laws, it is not punishable because. సో ఇక్కడ మళ్ళీ మీరు ఇక్కడ laws of nature పారాగ్రాఫ్లో వచ్చి if you read all this part, you might find the answer, and the answer is nothing but because there is no other superior being to enforce the laws of nature, which is answer B. మీకు ఇక్కడ ఇది అర్థం చేసుకోవాలంటే you have to read this part, the 4th line or the 5th line from there. This would do away with the elementary fallacy that law implies a lawgiver. A lawgiver is someone, okay, a lawgiver is someone who is a person who implies the law, right? మీకు కోర్ట్కి వెళ్తే యూ విల్ హ్యావ్ అ జడ్జ్ కదా. సో కోర్టులో జడ్జ్ గారు మీకు లా ఇస్తారు, బట్ ఇక్కడ నేచర్కి ఎవరు లా ఇస్తారు? దెర్ ఇస్ నో బడీ, నేచర్ కన్నా దెర్ ఇస్ నో బడీ మోర్ సుపీరియర్ కదా. సో హియర్ వాట్ ద ఆథర్ ఇస్ ట్రైంగ్ టు సే దట్ వెన్ దెర్ ఇస్ నో బడీ సుపీరియర్, how can there be law, right? So that is the answer. There is no superior being to enforce the law of nature. Laws of nature differ from man-made laws because, okay, first మీరు క్వశ్చన్ని కూడా చాలా అర్థం చేసుకోవాలి. So you should understand this question before you attempt the answer as well, which is very important. లేకపోతే మీరు క్వశ్చన్ చదివిన తర్వాత you will be only searching for the answer which will not be in there కదా. So you have to understand the question as well, which is very important. Ikkada laws of nature differ from man-made laws because there are few options over here. The former state facts of nature, they must be obeyed, they are natural, like unlike human laws, they are systematic. అంటే the former states facts of nature. Former అంటే ఫస్ట్ మీ సెంటెన్స్ ఉన్న ఫస్ట్ పార్ట్ని ఫార్మర్ అంటారు. లాటర్ అంటే ద నెక్స్ట్ పార్ట్ ఆఫ్ ద సెంటెన్స్ ఆర్ ద లాస్ట్ పార్ట్ ఆఫ్ ద సెంటెన్స్ ఇస్ ద లాటర్. ఓకే, సో ఫార్మర్ ఈ సెంటెన్స్లో ఏముంది, లాస్ ఆఫ్ నేచర్. లాస్ ఆఫ్ నేచర్ ఇస్ ద ఫార్మర్, రైట్? సో ఫార్మర్ పార్ట్ states the facts of nature. They must be obeyed, they are natural. Unlike human laws, they are systematic. Last three options are very understandable. Let's see what is the answer. The former states the facts of nature. So laws of nature state the facts of nature, but man-made laws are different. Man-made laws are about laws that mana court lo unde laws, those are man-made laws. Nature laws ante laws are which are nature lo kanpiche laws evaithe unnayo, that is laws of nature. Like if you do not do water harvesting, meeku ground lo water undadu, that is like laws of nature. Let's move on. The next question is, laws of nature based on observation are. So this question again, let's understand this question. The laws of nature based on observation are. So observation chesi manamu laws of nature laws of nature lo emem unnai, what are in the laws of nature, that is what we are trying to understand over here. And this question is about, if you had to observe, meer observe cheste laws of nature lo what is there? Conclusion about the nature of the universe, true and falsifiable, figments of the observer's imagination, subject to change in the light of new facts. Okay, so if we go back to the passage, I want you to take time, read this passage and find the answer to this question. Meeku oka 30 seconds time istanu, because I don't want it to be very easy for you. You can read it and try to at least guess the answers. Okay, so I will pause after every question at the passage where you can find the answer. Okay, so let's go back to the question. Laws in nature based on observation are subject to change in the light of new facts. So laws of nature anadi, we do not know everything about the laws of nature, right? So here the author has only mentioned that there is nothing superior. Laws of nature kana meeku superior anadi emi ledu, right? So nobody can control the nature. So here it is based on new things that you might appear, right? There might be new things that you might find in nature, like you might discover something else, that is the reason behind whatever is happening. So laws of nature are subject to change. We change our chavi based on new things that you will find. Okay, moving on to the next question. The author is not happy with the word law because, again, let's see here, when the author is asking you, saying that he's not happy, manam mood anadi we have discussed yesterday, right? We are supposed to understand what the author is talking about and how his mood is, right? So here his mood was what? He was upset because someone is using the term law. Law on a term should not be used, right? He wasn't happy that the word law is being used. So ikkada let's see what are the options. It connotes rigidity and harshness. It implies an agency which has made them. It does not convey the sense of nature's uniformity. It gives rise to false beliefs. So false beliefs is not the answer. Rigidity and harshness, yes, the word law talks about rigidity and harshness. It implies agency which has made them. Okay, yeah, it also implies that someone has made those laws. It does not convey the sense of nature's uniformity, right? Nature has a uniformity, right? So here most importantly, like see, now when I read all these questions, all the 4 questions chala confusing ga unde. Law means rigidity and harshness. It could be Also because he's not happy with the word law, because agency, someone has agency which has made them another, means to say that someone has created these laws, కానీ nobody has created these laws. It does not convey the sense of nature's uniformity. Nature lo anta uniform ga untundi, but he hasn't spoken about this. Now these people who have asked you this question are trying to confuse you with these other statements which are made, కానీ ఈ స్టేట్మెంట్స్ ప్యాసేజ్లో లేవు. సో you should try and make sure that you are aware of what is in the passage and what is similar to what is in the passage. So you may get confused by something that is not in the passage but is actually true and related to the subject that we are talking about. Okay, so look at what is most closely related to the passage. Okay, so the first answer, which is first option, sorry, which is it connotes rigidity and harshness. Okay, let's see if the author has mentioned this anywhere. Laws of nature are not commands but statements of acts. Okay, so here they are not commands but statements of acts. So he means to say that they are not commands, right? Commands again are rigid, okay, and they cannot be changed, right? So but laws of nature are not. So that is what is trying to be said by this option over here. It connotes rigidity and harshness. Okay, so the word law has been used to highlight rigidity and harshness, right? It is like a command. So when it's given as a command, the author is unhappy with it. That is the whole topic over here, and that is the reason why the author is unhappy. Okay, so let's move on to our next passage, which is at this stage, which is about, let's find out what it is about. At this stage of civilization, when many nations are brought into close and vital contact for good and evil, it is essential as never before that their gross ignorance of one another's should be diminished. Okay, let me pause over here. People, if you have remembered in yesterday's session, I have told you that you are supposed to underline. ఒక మీకు ఏమైనా డీటెయిల్స్ ఉంటాయి, లైక్ ఫర్ ఎగ్జాంపుల్ ఇఫ్ యూ థింక్ దిస్ ఇస్ వాట్ ద సబ్జెక్ట్ ఇస్, యూఆర్ సపోజ్ టు అండర్లైన్ దట్ పార్ట్. మీకు ఏమైనా డేట్స్, డీటెయిల్స్, నేమ్స్ ఆఫ్ పీపుల్, ఆర్ సే ఫర్ ఎగ్జాంపుల్ ఎనీ స్టేట్మెంట్ దట్ ఈస్ మేడ్ విచ్ యూ థింక్ విల్ బీ క్వశ్చన్డ్, దెన్ దాన్ని కూడా అండర్లైన్ చేసుకోవచ్చు. బికాస్ మీరు అండర్లైన్ చేసుకున్నవి ఇట్ విల్ బీ ఈజీ ఫర్ యువర్ రెఫరెన్స్. మీరు క్వశ్చన్ చూసిన తర్వాత ఇఫ్ యూ కమ్ బ్యాక్ టు ది ప్యాసేజ్ యూ మే నాట్ ఫైండ్ ది ఆన్సర్ సో ఈజీలీ. అందుకని if you use a pencil to underline it, it will be much more easier for you. Okay, so I'll continue from there. Should be diminished, that they should begin to understand a little of one another's historical experience and resulting mentality. It is the fault of the English to accept the people of other countries to react as they do to political and international situations. Our genuine goodwill and good intentions are often brought to nothing because we expect others to be like us. Okay, so if we check over here in this passage so far while we have read it, at this stage of civilization, so the person who has written this, author ఏమంటున్నారంటే ఆయన చెప్తున్నారు that this is the stage of civilization. So it is good to underline stage of civilization. That is the main topic, or it could be the topic. Okay, many nations are brought into what? Close and vital contact for what? Good and evil. So you can underline the close and vital part. Okay, and then again you can underline good and evil. You can underline stage of civilization. Okay, they should begin to understand a little of one another's historical experience. Right, so what should they begin to understand? Each other's historical experience. So you can underline historical experience, and resulting mentality also you can underline. It is a fault of who to expect the people of other countries to react as they do. You can underline English to political and international situations, to to react to what? To political and international situations. So you can underline political and international situations. Our genuine goodwill and good intentions are often brought to nothing. Okay, so what is brought to nothing? Genuine goodwill and good intentions. You can underline goodwill and good intentions. Okay, moving on, this would be corrected if we knew the history, not necessarily in detail but in broad outlines, right? So here you can underline what can help us correct it. History, right? By knowing that their history, so you can underline the history. It's not necessary in detail but in broad outlines of the social and political conditions. Okay, so it's broad outlines of the social and political conditions, right? So you can underline the social and political part, which are given each nation in its present character, which is given each nature its what? Present character. So you can underline present character. So if you remember, the last time yesterday we had also discussed that we have to underline, and I have again mentioned it today as well. So you could underline all these details mentioned in the passage. Once you underline these details that are mentioned in the passage, you will know how you can answer the questions once we move on to the questions now. Okay, so let's move on to the questions. According to the author, mentality of a nation is mainly product of its what? History, international position, politics, or present character. Okay, ఇందులో మీకు 4 options ఉన్నాయి, and we've already underlined most of the things that we have thought could be the answers. So let's go and check. I'll give you some time to guess the answer. మీరు ఆన్సర్ గెస్ చేసి టిక్ చేసుకోండి, or maybe you can at least remember somewhere, write it down A, B, C, D, which will help you remember what you have given as the answer. I'll show you the passage for your convenience. Okay, so let's check. What was the question? According to the author, mentality of a nation is mainly product of its immunity. It is a product. So the question over here, let's understand the question. According to the author, అంటే author అనుకున్నట్టు, as per the author ఎలా ఆలోచిస్తున్నారు, what is his mood, right? We've discussed yesterday ki author ఎలా ఆలోచిస్తున్నాడు or ఆయన mood is very important కదా. So you should know, is he talking good or is he talking bad about the whatever topic he's talking about. So here the author is talking about the mentality of a nation, and the mentality of a nation, like how English look at them and how other nations are looked upon, why is it important, right? So mentality of a nation is mainly product of its history, right? So I'll show you where the answer is, if I find it now. Yeah, so over here ikkada mention chesundi that they should begin to understand a little of one another's historical experience and resulting mentality. So the mentality of a nation is a mainly product of its history. Okay, let's move on to the next question. The need for a greater understanding between nations. Okay, so idi question అవుతుందా మనకి? This is not a question. మన question అంటే it should be like in a question format. What is this? Why is that? Right? So ఇక్కడ it is just a statement. It is ఒక statement ఇచ్చి మీకు ఆ statement continuation అడుగుతున్నాడు. So let's see what is the possible continuations of that sentence. Okay, the need for a greater understanding between nations was always there, or is no longer there, or is more today than ever before, or will always be there, right? So ఈ statement మీకు నాకు తెలిసి it is not in the passage లో మీకు ఈ statement ఇవ్వలేదు. This is like your understanding of the passage. This is where your comprehension part comes into the picture. మీరు ఎలా ఆలోచిస్తున్నారు, వాట్ డిడ్ యూ ఈవెన్ అండర్స్టాండ్ వాట్ ద ఆథర్ ఎలా ఆలోచిస్తున్నాడు, ఏం చెప్తున్నాడు, యూ హ్యావ్ టు అండర్స్టాండ్, రైట్? సో ఇఫ్ యూ అండర్స్టూడ్ దాట్, then you can answer this question. Otherwise it is difficult. మీరు క్వశ్చన్ చూసి if you go back to the passage, అక్కడ మీకు ఆన్సర్ దొరకచ్చు or you may not find it, but this is something that you should understand, right? So the need for a greater understanding between nations. Take your time to guess what the answer is. You could take a good look at the options చూసుకోండి ఏం ఆప్షన్స్ ఉన్నాయి, and then we can go back to the passage. Okay, now let's go to the passage and check. మీరు మళ్ళీ ప్యాసేజ్ని ఇంకోసారి you can quickly read it as well. Whenever you get a question that is like tricky like this, you have already highlighted most of the things in your passage, so మీకు ఇంకా ఈజీగా చదవడానికి అవ్వచ్చు. So just read through the entire passage once again, or just read the highlighted points. You should be able to find the answer. So I'm sure you have understood that this is what the author is trying to say. Let's go back. Love you. Okay, sorry. The need for a greater understanding between nations is more today than ever before, right? So if you go back to the passage over here and see, the author would have definitely mentioned it somewhere that it is more important to have better understanding between nations today, and now that we are very close, we have an era where people are interacting more with different people from different countries. So it is an important thing to understand each other, and to understand each other we should know their history. That is what the author has mentioned. Okay, and based on their history they think, okay, wala mentality has changed because of the history, right? So that is obviously the right answer. It is more important today than ever before. It is not like before, and we definitely need that kind of understanding now. That is what the author is saying. Okay, the character of a nation is the result of its mentality, cultural heritage, gross ignorance, socio-political conditions. So these are the four options given. Character of the nation. Now the mentality we've discussed. Now the character of the nation also is something else. So now if you have to think about this, it might be a bit tricky. We've already read about history. History అని ఒకసారి మెన్షన్ చేసి ఉంది. Then how can there be something else? So let's go back to the passage and see what is mentioned as the character of the nation, or what is related to character of the nation. Okay, so here we have read this passage. This would be corrected if we knew the history not necessarily in detail, but in broad outlines of the social and political conditions which have given to each nation its present character. Okay, so nation's character, right? The question is asking about the nation's character. The nation's character anadi is your main part of the question, right? So what is related to the nation's character in this passage? They mentioned that it could be corrected if you knew the history, not necessarily in detail but in broad outlines, but the social and political conditions which have given to each other, right? Let's go back to the question over here. The character of a nation is the result of its mentality, cultural heritage, gross ignorance, socio-political conditions. Okay, so here they haven't mentioned the history, right? The author has said to understand, అంటే టు వాళ్ళ వేరే నేషన్ వాళ్ళని అర్థం చేసుకోవడానికి you will have to know their history. But the character of the nation is decided because of their socio-political conditions. It's almost the same thing. History is nothing but the previous social, the socio and political conditions in the past, but currently their character is the present character, right? So the present character is based on socio-political conditions. Okay. Let's move on to the next question. According to the author, his countrymen should read the story of other nations, have a better understanding of other nations, not react to other actions, have vital contacts with other nations. Okay. Not react to other actions is definitely not the answer, as we know. Have vital contacts with other nations, which is also not the answer, or nowhere related to mana topic ikkada. Read the story of other nations may or may not be. Have a better understanding of other nations. Okay, could be one of these two. So take your time and make your guess. Okay, so I'm sure you will not have so much of time to understand what the question is, question emiti, what is the author trying to tell you in the thinking time undadu meeku in your exam. I guess you will have to answer this as soon as possible, immediately ala. But this, if you practice this way of thinking and this way of answering your questions, then definitely you will be able to think faster when your exam is on. Okay, make this a way of practicing your mind. Yeah, make sure that you definitely have this way of thinking. Way of thinking another, when you are in the exam, you should not slip out. You should not like get confused or panic when you see such a question. So just practice more and use whatever has we have discussed, and you will definitely be able to answer faster. Kani right now, because we are learning, manam koncham slow steps తీసుకొని మనం మెల్లమెల్లగా we'll get to that point. Okay. Read the story of other nations. Is the author telling us to read the story of other nations? Okay. Is he asking us to have a better understanding of other nations? Okay, one of these two could be our answer, right? So let's see what is the answer. Have a better understanding of other nations. So more than reading the story of other nations, he has not said story of the other nations. He said, in other words, he's actually said the story of other nations, but most importantly, he wants us to have a better understanding of other nations. Okay, so moving on. Englishmen. Okay, next question is, Englishmen like others to react to political situations like us, themselves, others, each others. If you remember when we were talking about the passage chadvinappudu, I have told you to underline English, right? I do remember very well that we have discussed that we will highlight whatever is important, underline them, right? So this question in particular, had you underlined the English part, you will definitely know the answer to this question. Let's go back to the passage and see where this English part mentioned chesundi. Okay, so I can see English over here, right? It is a fault of the English to expect the people of other countries to react as they do to political and international situations. So this means to say that as they do, when they are mentioned over here to react as they do, that means to say as themselves, right? So let's see if that is the right answer. Absolutely, right? So be Englishmen like to react to political situations like themselves is the answer. They do not want to react to political situations like us or some others or each others. It is like themselves. Okay. So with this, I think we can take a break. As you guys have understood, these are the ways or these are the best ways of answering your passage part. We will move on and practice few more passages. Inka koni passages practice chesi. We will get the hang of it. We'll definitely learn how to answer these questions better with implementing whatever we think will help us in the exam to write it fast. Okay. So let's take a break now. Thank you.